My name is Alexander M. Keith, better known as Sandy Keith. I am an attorney in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm of counsel of the law firm of Dunlap and Seeger, located in the First Fidelity Building in Rochester, Minnesota. Some time ago, I was contacted by Representative Bill Sinclair, who is authoring a bill in the Colorado legislature relating to dissolutions and the issue of parenting of children. I think the committee ought to realize that I would have very much liked to have testified before you personally. Believe it or not, I was skiing at beautiful Vail, Colorado on December 13th when I had a fall and broke both of my shoulders. I have never had a serious accident skiing in Colorado for 35 years, but this one has really set me back a great deal. It was for this reason that they asked me to give a statement by video, if at all possible. Let me give you a little background. I was born and raised in Rochester, Minnesota, son of a doctor. This is the home of the Mayo Clinic. I attended Amherst College and Yale Law School, served 2+ years in the United States Marine Corps in Korea, and then returned to Rochester, where I founded the law firm which is now known as Dunlap and Seeger in 1960. Since the beginning of my practice, I had a deep interest in family law. As most of you on this committee know, I'm sure, that we have had a very serious cultural revolution in this country. When I grew up, there were hardly any divorces in Rochester, Minnesota. Today, close to half the marriages are dissolved within 10 years. Doing this type of work, I soon discovered that the law was not always perfect in handling these kinds of cases, and that there was great harm done primarily to children of divorce if there was a contested custody case before the courts. In 1978, I gave up trying custody cases because I believed they were destroying the relationship between parents, and that no one won, and that the children lost, and often suffered deeply. And from that day on, we entered in our county a very extensive education course for parents who were contesting custody. I never had a custody fight in which both parents weren't decent people. That was why they were disputing it. If they didn't want to share their parenting, they didn't contest it. So if the man or doctor wanted to work 80 hours a week, obviously his wife would have the children most of the time. And so I could go on and on. But I wanted to state that because of this experience with children, and I became a mediator very early on, and I had the great fortune in 1989 to be appointed to the Minnesota Supreme Court, and in 1990 I was appointed Chief Justice for a period of 8 years. This was a great experience for me, and in this period of time I introduced and helped push through our State Bar Association and our legislature the concept of mediation, not only in family law, but in all areas of the law, that we ought to be able to resolve disputes in a better manner than the total adversary system. So this is the reason I was interested in your bill, the bill that's now before you. This is basically, as I understand it, this establishes a rebuttable presumption that parents have shared parenting time. That's the first question I ask any couple, any person that walks in my office interested in a divorce that has children. How are you going to parent your children? I ask them before anything else. I don't care about their money. I don't care about anything else. But how are you going to handle these children so they aren't harmed by a divorce? And it's amazing. Most parents that really love their children, want to have a meaningful relationship with their children. And I think this bill, which would basically establish a rebuttable presumption, makes some sense and ought to be tried in one of our 50 states. Obviously, the bill does not prevent parents from agreeing to a different arrangement. This could always be done as I read the bill. Obviously, one party may not want to have an active role in the raising of a child. Often I have this. Not often, not too often, but occasionally. The conditions may exist where it's impossible to have a shared parenting arrangement, especially if one of the parents is going to move a great deal of distance away. As you know, 1 out of 3 marriages, in my experience, the parents ended up in another state. And of course, if there's any problems with abuse or domestic or spousal abuse, obviously shared parenting time does not make good sense. So for the various reasons that I have indicated, I think the whole concept of shared parenting makes a lot of sense and ought to be given consideration. I think I did a total of close to 1,800 divorces in my practice of over 30 years, and of course, my 9 years on the court I didn't practice, but I handled a number of cases for the court. And I do know that we need to minimize the conflict, especially over the parenting of children. I hate the word custody. You don't own your children. You try to parent them. And the 2 parents ought to sit down, and it's wonderful, it seems to me, to start from a presumption that there will be a shared parenting arrangement. It'll never be equal, exactly, but it certainly should be encouraged. And I think this statute would lead, in my opinion, to a new focus by lawyers and mediators and other people dealing in this area in trying to see to it that children have a meaningful relationship with their both parents. It normally is best for the children. I can tell you that over and over. I found this to be true. There are exceptions. People who are alcoholics, chemically dependent, should not have custody of their children, do not get shared parenting time. But normally, this is what we ought to try to achieve. In the normal family, especially where the parents are going to be living in the same community, they're can work out their relationship for schooling and education and religion, it makes good sense. And I would urge your committee to give this thoughtful consideration. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you all. I'd love to take your questions. I have done, and I still continue to do, this type of work. It's not easy, but we're making headway. Thank you.